Recently, there have been more and more good adaptations of video games, and thank God for that. There's been the Mario movie or The Last of Us. What are you doing here? Get out of here. Anyway, today I wanted to look at games, or specifically the stories in games, that only really work in the gaming medium. These are definitely not the only ones that couldn't be done in any different way, but I think they're the best examples. A lot of games heavily rely on unique mechanics, such as Hellblade with the whole voices thing. Throughout the entire game, you can hear distinct voices inside your head, at least if you're wearing headphones. The main character, Senua, I think that's how you pronounce her name? Wait, let me check.
And I play Senua and Senua Saga
Yeah,
Hellblade
okay,
2.
right. So, Senua has schizophrenia and also experiences psychotic episodes. So to really immerse you in this world, the developers added voices using spatial audio, and it really makes you feel like you have schizophrenia. If you were to translate this into a movie or a show, this effect would be almost impossible to recreate, and even if you somehow managed to do that, it wouldn't hit as hard, since you aren't playing as the character anymore and hearing the voices for yourself. Something else that wouldn't really work is just long games in general, any RPG you can imagine. I think Persona is a great cautionary tale of this, since the last 3 games all got adaptized into an anime form. 3 got 4 movies, and 4 and 5 just released as regular anime seasons. Even if you rush through the shortest of these games, it'll at least take you 60 hours just to beat the main story. In Persona, social links play a huge part in the gameplay and story, but the animes, because of these time constraints, choose to remove them completely, or cram them all into one episode, or just try a confusing mess of both and then not do neither at the same time. Just don't watch the Persona 5 anime, it's horrible. Point is, none of these shows can recapture the magic of these stories, and they lose a lot of impact because of that. You could try and add your own content instead. That's what the Persona 3 movie did, or at least the third Persona 3 movie. It tried, and it failed miserably. It chose to focus on the new elements, and rushed through some of the most important and emotional scenes from the original story? Okay. I think the only way to make long games work is to release more episodes, but no one has the time or budget to do that. Another type of game that we should mention is the walking simulator, because half of the point in those is basically to just uncover the story for yourself. This sort of structure doesn't really work in movies or shows. Their structure is the most important part, so it would be rather unfocused and it could get very confusing very quickly. An obvious contender are the puzzle games. And I mean the basic puzzle games. None of those fancy Portal or Portal 2s out there, okay? I won't be having any characters in my puzzle game, thank you. Oh, damn it, I just remembered the Tetris movie exists. Okay, you know what? New rule. Based on real events, movies, or whatever you call them, don't count, okay? Right, moving on. What I mean is something like The Witness. There you basically just solve puzzle after puzzle. Even if a movie was made about this, and it was something original and just used the world as a basis, that also wouldn't work because the mechanics would be too confusing to represent in a movie. As soon as the protagonist in the game is silent, it instantly becomes much harder to adapt. The Mario movie somehow managed to pull it off, which honestly I'm still befuddled by.
Koopas!
Is befuddled a word? I'm sure it is. The Persona animes are hit or miss, but sometimes they work pretty good.
Oh, Anna left teeth marks too! Are you okay?
I might be dying.
No, you're not.
But then, if we look at Skyrim, where there is nothing to work with in terms of characterization for the main character, it becomes much harder to adapt this into a good story. You could make the case that the world is interesting, and I agree, you could definitely make something out of the world of Skyrim. The Fallout show did this recently, just taking the world of Fallout and kind of making its own story up as it goes. I thought that was pretty cool, but I didn't really want to talk about Skyrim. This is just a random detour I went on. What I really wanted to mention is Shadow of the Colossus. You cannot adapt that game, just deal with it. Not only is there a silent protagonist, but also the world isn't really giving you anything to work with. It's just an empty grassland with 16 monsters to fight, a central building, and nothing else. Still, I think that's not the reason why Shadow of the Colossus would be so hard to recreate. It's mostly because of the general vibe of the game. The bleak atmosphere is just impossible to recapture in the film, I think. And if you wanted to just retell the story, you have like 20 minutes of content and 16 fight scenes that are pretty difficult to make and to make them actually look good and not repetitive. Plus the story is kind of weird and open-ended, which is on purpose obviously, but it wouldn't really work as an adaptation. At the end of the day, I think you could say that any of these could be made into adaptations. You could just retell the story of some of them in a different way, like The Last of Us did, or you could use the world as a basis, like Fallout. Almost any game could be recreated in that way. There is one type of game, however, that I think just absolutely cannot be adapted no matter how hard you try. Those are the sandbox games like Terraria or Minecraft. You can't adapt Minecraft no matter how hard you try, I'm sorry. Just look at it. The blocky nature of the game, the weird creatures from sheep to creepers to bees that just roam around the world, the silent protagonist Steve that doesn't say a word, and the entire game doesn't have a plot. It has an ending, but it does not have a plot. You can't even really do anything with the world that Minecraft provides, since it's just unrealistic real life. That's why a Minecraft adaptation is never ever gonna... What the fuck?
It's not a game. I'm not a robot.